Alexander Volkov stepped out of the backseat of his glossy black Maybach, the kind of car that made strangers turn their heads. His assistant was talking beside him, listing appointments, meetings, signatures, his daily rhythm of power. But for the first time in years, Alexander wasn't listening. Something in the air felt strange, like a whisper of a memory tugging at his chest. He walked toward the entrance of the business center, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored suit, when a soft voice echoed from across the street, carried lightly by the breeze. It wasn't even a full word, just a tone, a pitch he hadn't heard in months but had once woken up beside every morning. He froze. His hand slipped from his briefcase. His assistant's voice faded to nothing. On the other side of the street, a small group of people waited for the pedestrian light to change. One of them, a woman in a simple beige coat, shifted slightly, turning just enough for him to see her profile. Elena. Time slammed to a halt. The noise of the city fell silent. The world narrowed to the shape of her face. His heart, which had been dead weight in his chest for 8 long months, suddenly roared to life. But then he saw it. Her coat wasn't simply wrapped around her. It was stretched, rounded. Her hands rested over a swollen belly, a very pregnant belly. Alexander's breath vanished. He staggered a step forward, his vision blurring around the edges. "No," he whispered, barely able to hear himself. It felt impossible, like someone had punched a hole straight through his reality. The child he had buried in his mind. The child he mourned in silence, alone in his cold mansion, late at night when no one could see him. The child whose death he convinced himself he had accepted. There it was, alive, moving beneath her hands. His mind raced, trying to find an explanation. Was it someone else's? No, Elena had never been with anyone else. He knew that as deeply as he knew his own name. And then the cruelest truth cut him open. The due date lined up exactly with the baby he'd been told had died. The light turned green. People began crossing the street. Elena lifted her head. Their eyes met. Her breath caught, and her face drained of color. She looked terrified, as if seeing a ghost. Alexander took a step toward her. Then another. His voice broke, raw, desperate. "Elena, is that our child?" Before the question even finished leaving his lips, Elena's eyes filled with tears. And she ran. Alexander bolted after her, leaving behind his assistant, his car, his meetings, everything. Because the only thing that mattered now was the truth Elena had been forced to hide from him. Alexander followed her through the crowded street, dodging startled pedestrians and ignoring the horns blaring around him. Elena moved fast despite her pregnancy, her coat fluttering behind her like a wounded bird trying to escape a storm. She didn't look back once, not even when he called her name again, breathless and shaking. "Elena, please, stop." But she only pressed a hand against her belly protectively, as if shielding the child from him. They turned into a narrow side alley that opened into an older residential block. Elena fumbled with a rusted metal gate, her hands trembling so badly it barely budged. Alexander reached her just as she managed to slip through, but she slammed it shut between them. "Don't come any closer," she cried. Alexander gripped the bars, his chest rising and falling harshly. Rain began sprinkling from the overcast sky, adding a thin glistening layer to her already tear-stained face. "Elena," he whispered, "why are you running from me?" She shook her head, backing away until her shoulders hit the peeling wall behind her. The old brick scraped her coat, yet she barely seemed to feel it. Her entire body trembled, not with anger, but something far heavier. "I can't do this," she said, her voice cracking. "You weren't supposed to see me. You weren't supposed to know." Alexander felt a cold wave run down his spine. Supposed to know what? For a moment she didn't speak. She pressed her palms over her belly, closing her eyes as if bracing herself against some invisible force. When she finally opened them, the pain inside them nearly brought Alexander to his knees. "That the baby is alive." Thunder rolled faintly in the distance. The rain grew stronger, drops striking the pavement in a steady rhythm, soaking Alexander's shirt and plastering Elena's hair to her cheeks. For 8 months he had lived assuming their child had died. Now the truth stood trembling in front of him, carrying the life he had mourned. He stepped closer to the gate, voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me? Elena, why didn't you come to me?" Her laugh came out broken, fragile, the kind that carried more grief than humor. "You think I didn't want to? You think I didn't cry myself to sleep every night wishing things were different? She shook her head again, clutching her belly as if holding onto the only piece of safety she had left. But they didn't give me a choice. Alexander's pulse froze. They? Who is they? Instead of answering, Elena gestured toward a worn-down apartment building behind her, the kind of place he couldn't imagine her living in. A place far removed from the bright, polished world he had trapped her in for years. I have to go, she said. Please, just let me go. It's better this way. Better for who? Alexander stepped against the gate, desperate. For you. For the baby. Or for the people who forced you to disappear. Her eyes flinched with a truth she hadn't spoken yet. He softened his voice. Elena, I'm begging you, tell me what happened. I need to know. I need to understand. She stared at him, her lips trembling, tears mixing with the rain. You were never meant to find out, she whispered. And now, everything is going to get worse. Before he could ask what she meant, she turned and hurried inside the building, leaving him standing in the rain with nothing but the echo of her words. And the terrifying certainty that someone had stolen 8 months of his child's life from him. Alexander stood in the rain long after Elena disappeared into the dark stairwell. The chill didn't bother him, he barely felt it. His mind was a storm louder than the thunder beginning to rumble overhead. He forced himself to move, pushing open the rusted gate and following the path she had taken. The inside of the building smelled of damp concrete and old paint. Flickering lights buzzed above, casting weak, uneven shadows along the narrow hallway. This was where she had been living. This was where his child grew. A knot of guilt tightened in his throat. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking beneath his weight. He didn't know which apartment was hers, but he didn't need to. He found her on the 2nd floor, sitting on the cold hallway floor, leaning against her door with her head in her hands. Her shoulders shook silently. Elena, he said softly. She didn't lift her head. You should leave. I'm not leaving. He walked closer and crouched in front of her, his expensive trousers soaking through from the wet floor. Not again. Not this time. Her fingers tightened over her belly, as if she could physically shield the baby from the pain of the moment. You don't understand, she whispered. Then make me understand. His voice broke, raw. I thought the baby died. I thought we lost everything. And now I see you, alive, pregnant, alone, and I don't know what to believe. Slowly, Elena raised her head. Her face was pale, her lashes wet from tears, her lips trembling from holding back months of fear. Alexander had seen her cry before, but never like this. This wasn't sadness. This was terror. The kind that lingers in someone who has been threatened, cornered, and left with no one to trust. I wanted to tell you, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to run back to you the moment I found out the baby survived. But I couldn't. Why? He breathed. Who kept you from me? She let out a shaky breath, eyes darting toward the stairwell as if someone might appear at any moment. Your mother, she finally whispered. Alexander felt his heart slam into his ribs. My mother. He sat back, stunned. Elena, that makes no sense. She wouldn't, she couldn't. She did. Elena's voice trembled as she remembered. She came to the hospital the day I collapsed. You weren't there. I was bleeding, terrified, and she stood over me while the doctors worked. She told me I was weak, unfit, that the baby wouldn't survive and I should stop pretending I was meant to be part of your world. Alexander felt rage begin to pulse through him, thick, hot, and poisonous. She bribed the doctor, Elena continued. Paid him to tell you the baby didn't make it. When I woke up and learned the truth, that the baby was still hanging on, she threatened me. She said if I said a word to you, if I tried to stay, she would take the baby away the moment it was born. And with her power, with her lawyers, I believed her. Tears streamed down her face. So I left. I signed the papers she pushed in front of me. I disappeared because I thought it was the only way to keep our child safe. Alexander's vision blurred with fury and grief. His mother. His own mother. He clenched his hands, knuckles whitening, nails biting into his palms. Elena, he said, voice shaking with the force of his vow, I swear to you, I had no idea. If I knew, if I even suspected, he swallowed hard. I never would have let you go. I never would have let her touch you. Or our child. Her breath hitched, a small sound of pain and longing. Alexander reached out with trembling fingers. Please, he whispered. Let me protect you now. Let me protect both of you. For a long moment, Elena didn't move. Her eyes searched his, looking for the man she once loved, the man she feared had been swallowed by wealth, pride, and his mother's shadow. Finally, her hand lifted. Not to push him away, but to place his palm gently on her belly. A faint, fluttering kick met his touch. Alexander's breath broke. His entire chest caved in. His eyes burned. "That's our baby," he whispered, tears falling freely. "That's my child, alive, after all this time." Elena nodded weakly, watching his face soften, crumble, and rebuild all at once. But even in that fragile, quiet moment of connection, fear lingered in her eyes. Because the truth that bound them together was the same truth that put them in more danger than Alexander yet understood. Alexander helped Elena to her feet and gently guided her inside the small apartment. The air smelled faintly of lavender detergent, a scent Elena must have used to mask the old, musty building odor. The place was tiny, a narrow living room with mismatched furniture, a kitchen barely big enough for one person, and a single bedroom with a creaky door. This was where she had been hiding, where she had survived, where their child had grown. The shame hit him like a blow to the chest. "I should have been here," he murmured, scanning the room. "You should never have had to live like this, not alone, not while carrying our baby." Elena sank into a worn-out chair, wincing as she shifted her weight. The pregnancy clearly wasn't easy on her. Her face looked tired, her ankles slightly swollen. She placed her hands on her belly as if grounding herself. "You weren't supposed to know," she said softly. "That was the whole point." Alexander crouched in front of her again, unable to stand the distance between them. "Whose point?" he pressed. "My mother's. Elena, if she did everything you say, I need proof. I need details. Everything." She closed her eyes. Her throat tightened before she could speak. "She showed up at the hospital while you were out signing documents for that new project," Elena whispered. "I thought she'd comfort me. Instead, she told the doctor to tell you the baby didn't survive. She said you deserved someone stronger, someone from a better family. Someone who wouldn't taint the Volkov bloodline." Alexander's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "And you believed her threats?" "I didn't just believe them," she said, voice cracking. "I saw them. She brought lawyers, 3 of them. She had papers ready, divorce filings, confidentiality agreements. Everything was clean, prepared, impossible to fight. She told me that if I stayed with you, she'd challenge my mental fitness, call me unstable, claim I faked symptoms to trap you." The words made Alexander's stomach twist. He remembered his mother saying similar things years ago, comments he brushed off as cold but harmless. He didn't see the poison spreading behind them. "She said she'd take my child from me," Elena whispered. "And I knew she could." Tears streamed down her cheeks again, silent and bitter. Alexander reached for her hands, holding them firmly between his own. "Elena, listen to me," he said, voice trembling. "I am sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I didn't see what she was doing. Sorry that you carried all of this alone." She swallowed hard, her breath shuddering. "You didn't know. You trusted her. And that was my mistake," he said with a harsh, self-loathing laugh. "I trusted the one person capable of destroying everything I loved." A quiet moment passed. The baby kicked again, a small reminder that life still lingered, despite everything. Elena looked away. "She won't stop, Alexander. You being here, it changes everything. She'll find out you know the truth. She'll come for me. For the baby. Let her try," he said, anger simmering beneath every syllable. "I'll burn every bridge she stands on. I'll tear down the Volkov empire if I have to." Elena's eyes widened. "That's your family. Your legacy. You and this child are my family now," he whispered. But even as he said it, a sharp knock rattled the apartment door. Elena flinched violently. Her entire body went rigid with fear. Alexander turned slowly toward the noise, his pulse spiking. Another knock, harder this time. "Elena." A cold, familiar voice echoed from the hallway. "Open the door. We need to talk." Alexander felt the blood drain from his face. He knew that voice. Victoria Volkov. She had found them. And she wasn't alone. Shadows moved under the door, men, security, lawyers. Elena's breath hitched in terror. Alexander stood, his eyes burning with fury. "It's too late," she whispered, gripping his sleeve. "She knows. Alexander stepped between the door and Elena, his stance protective, unyielding. She may know, he said, voice low and lethal. But she has no idea what I'm willing to do now. The knock came again, this time followed by the jingle of keys. Alexander realized something chilling. His mother had already prepared for this moment. Just like she prepared everything else.